We're alive.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Davis. I'm the Mayor of the City of Brantford, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the May Committee of the Whole Planning Administration meeting. And I'd ask that you rise as you're able as we read the invocation to begin this evening's meeting. As we come together tonight, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. We acknowledge the rich history of this land, which includes the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Today, there are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who live or work in the city. The intent of this acknowledgement is to recognize our responsibility to use and take care of these lands responsibly and respectfully, while remembering the generations past and considering the generations to come. We respect and seek to continue and promote the long-standing relationships with the area's First Nations, Six Nations of the Grand River, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and all of the Indigenous peoples who reside within the city of Brantford. Let us also not forget those who've served our community and who are no longer with us, so we can continue to do work that we must in their memory. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, has the roll been taken?
The roll has been taken.
Okay. Members, does anybody have a pecuniary interest they need to declare regarding any item that's on the agenda tonight? If so, physically raise your hand. Seeing no raised hands, we'll now move into the separation of items. Are there any items that members would like separated for discussion purposes? Yes, Councilor Martin.
Yeah, item 7.1.1 and 7.1.4.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Carpenter.
6.2.1.
6.2. Yeah, that's a presentation, so it's separated. Anything else? Okay, not seeing. We've got 7.1.1 and 7.1.4, and we have two other items that are separated because, of course, there's one, a statutory public hearing, and we also have a staff presentation in respect, I think, to the matter that you're referring to, Councilor Carpenter. So with that, if I can have Councilor Martin, if you please move the motion to approve all the items that have not been separated.
Certainly, I move, seconded by Councilor McCurry, that all items for consideration and consent, 7.1 and 7.2, not separated for discussion purposes, be approved.
Madam Clerk, if you please read the title of the items we're voting on.
Of course, thank you. Item 7.1.3, amendment to noise bylaw, 7.1.5, reduction of student semester parking pass amount, and 7.1.6, the minutes of Committee of the Whole Planning Administration of April 14th. Thank you. And those items carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. All those voting in favor are Councilor Sicoli, Caputo, McCrary, Martin, Hunt, Carpenter, Samwell, Van Tilburg, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. So we have one statutory public hearing on tonight's agenda, and it concerns official plan amendment OP 0425 settlement area expansion 0 and 131 to Tula Heights Road. So this public meeting is held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The purpose of the hearing is to discuss an amendment to the city's official plan and to hear from the public either in support of or against the amendment. At the end of the public meeting portion, the committee will pass a recommendation, which is generally considered for a final decision at the next council meeting, which this month would be next Tuesday. The name of anyone who speaks in regards to any item will appear within the meeting minutes. Anyone wishing notice of any further proceedings regarding this application should provide their name and address to city staff, in particular the clerk's office. And we ask that members of the public in attendance today who speak to an item, please be sure that you do provide your contact information at the sign-in sheet located at the delegates table. So the procedure we follow is we hear from the applicant agent. We then hear from the staff. We then hear from members of the public. And then the applicant agent is given an opportunity to respond, all of which is in accordance with the rules of natural justice and which we're required to do in accordance with the provincial rules under the Planning Act. So I'm now going to call upon the applicant or agent to speak to the committee regarding this application. And I believe this would be Matthew. Yes, Matthew. So as a reminder, you have 10 minutes inclusive of questions to present your application.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening to all members of committee and to the public. Pleased to be here today to present and receive public comments, although I'm aware and understand that a decision will be made as well tonight on the application. But firstly, I'd like to go through the application itself and present it for your benefit and for the public's benefit. There's a large consulting team that was comprised to undertake this work. It's the nature of the application on behalf of the applicant is to do a settlement area boundary expansion to include this remaining area just in the Tutela Heights area to the east of the existing development and proposed development that's going on, as well as to designate the land residential. There's a lot of studies obviously required to do that, whether it's your staff or ourselves producing them. So we have this large team had to pull together, and there's an extensive amount of studies and work that was submitted from a technical perspective for review to the city. Just in terms of what we've done to date, we had a pre-consultation meeting back in May of 2025. We submitted our application after preparing all that study work in November. There was an open house held on March 30th. I see many of the residents here today that we saw at the open house. And then, of course, we're here today at the statutory public meeting and a decision potentially from committee of the whole. So just to orient everyone, the subject lands, they were located east of Davern Road, between Tutela Heights Road and Phelps Road. You can see the area here is approximately 76 hectares, and the lands are currently farmed. They're used for agricultural purposes. In terms of the surrounding context, there are a number of applications around us. There's Tutela Heights South, further to the west, and immediately to the west of us is Tutela Heights East. I apologize. I realize how hard this is to read on this slide, so I'll describe it for you. But those are significant applications that are going forward immediately to the west of us. And ultimately, as those continue to proceed, we see these lands as a good limit of the boundary of the settlement area. This brings it to a logical conclusion at Phelps Road. And it's a logical extension of what is currently the developing area in this part of the city. The lands in your current official plan are designated agriculture and core natural areas, and of course are located outside of the settlement area. The official plan amendment, as I mentioned, is to further refine and identify the natural heritage system by putting a natural features designation, which is the green that you see on this slide within the boundary of our lands. That's the core natural areas. And then parks and open space. There's a central park that's being proposed in the middle of the area to serve all the residents, as well as residential on the yellow, for which is the majority of the lands. The official plan amendment, the site-specific policies would permit townhouses permitted along the collector roads, both major and minor, and local roads. Stormwater management facilities are permitted on all the lands, and the collector roads will be developed in coordination with the city. So there's still a conversation that has to go on there in coordination with your staff on a go-forward basis. The location alignment may be refined. There's a policy that allows for that in the proposed, what we're proposing in terms of the policies. And of course, the vast majority of the site is anticipated to be and would be comprised of single and semi-detached units for the most part. There are some official plan policies here. I have 10 minutes. I'm going to skip through that. They're on the record though for you. There was a land needs assessment that we did. Obviously, these lands are not in your settlement area. There has been some time passed. I remember that this city was exemplary in being one of the first out of the gate to implement the growth plan. And I thought that was a wonderful thing that the city did. A part of doing it that early though, back, I think it was 2001 or 22, I forget the exact date, is that a lot of things have changed since then, not least of which are the Ministry of Finance projections are now out. Those have increased the population, as I'm sure you're aware, for the city by about 17,000 people over what the growth plan had forecasted. And our land use assessment identified a shortfall of over 400 hectares potentially that the city would be required to provide to accommodate forecasted need for housing. That's not even accounting for any displaced housing from any other surrounding area or city. So that was a basis for the land need that we did. We had to assess that under the PPS, the provincial planning statement. We did that. We also produced a servicing fiscal impact to the city. Proposed development would generate significant revenues to the city in terms of development charges, as well as incremental cost is fairly low because a lot of the infrastructure that's being installed for surrounding development we would use and benefit from as well. Ultimately, there's a net one-time water wastewater revenues of 18.7 million that was identified, and over revenues and road-related revenues over 13 million to the city. And ultimately, there's at full build-out an estimated surplus to the city from a fiscal perspective. There are servicing in the area. Again, existing servicing water and wastewater is available and nearby. There are different options to accomplish that. That was discussed. One of the things at the public meeting, the open house, was how we would do that, whether it's servicing down Davern or whether it's across Tutela or whether it's through a future collector road that would be coming from the west of our property to our property. That has yet to be finalized and determined, but all are servicing options that we think show it's viable to service these lands and to develop them one path or another. Settlement area boundary expansion, we addressed all the policies of your official plan and the PPS. You cannot read that. I can't read that. I'm too old. My eyes aren't that great anymore. But they're there for everyone to review as you can. We weren't required to go to this level of detail to provide a concept plan. We did. And that is not what's being asked for approval through the official plan amendment. However, we felt it was prudent to look at what the details that could happen for a future subdivision and zoning amendment to make sure we understood the requirements for development and that the official plan designations we were seeking were appropriate. You do see here a range of around around about 1,200 units, residential units, largely comprised of single to semi-detached units in the yellow. Townhouses were contemplated in the orange to provide a mix of housing options. And then certainly at the public meeting, and we're contemplating this as well, we heard at the public open house, we heard that those purple lots are intended to be transition lots. There's an intent to match or provide compatible lotting with our neighbors who are on Davern to the west. We heard that loud and clear at the open house, and that's something we're obviously considering and would consider through future development applications. What you also see here is a natural heritage system in the light green, protecting the natural features that need to be protected based on the environmental work we've done. And then that centralized park to provide a park that's walkable and accessible, both for our future residents in this neighborhood as well as to the west. So just quick overview, what we heard at the open house, and I'm sure you'll hear from some of the residents here tonight as well. The archaeological potential of the lands and the importance of First Nations consultation was highlighted many times in the meeting. Well aware of the obligation and the commitment to do that in cooperation with the city. And I know First Nations were circulated. We only got the comments from staff on everything that we submitted yesterday. So we haven't had a chance to go through them all, obviously, but understand the need to do that and the importance. There was a number of planning comments. I'll just note a few of them here, given the time constraint. There was a preference for a less dense concept plan, I would say generally. That's what we heard from many of the residents. There was a lot of concerns expressed about having very fewer or no townhouse units. There was a preference for a landscape buffer between homes on Davern and any future development on our lands. There were some notes, more, I would say more for the city than us, that there's some existing capacity pressures on community facilities and even some of the infrastructure that people on Davern were experiencing, and to the Heights to some extent. And also interest in the timing of development, how it would be coordinated to the west. Engineering comments, again, mainly focused on the servicing and how that would be delivered. There was questions on how the closure of Tula Heights Road and how things would be rerouted would work, and certainly the transportation side of things. One major thing to note here.
Matthew, I'm just going to hold you up there for a minute. We've hit 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'm just going to say to the committee members, if there's no objection from the committee, I propose we extend up to 5 minutes so that Mr. Corey can complete his application. I know there's at least one or two members that want to ask questions. So not seeing any objection, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Your Worship, and I will endeavor to go very quickly through this. There's one major point here. Heard from the residents loud and clear that did not want to see potentially any vehicular access onto Davern from our development, even though that's been planned and accommodated. We're certainly happy to and look at just having it be for emergency access and pedestrian access only. That is for our future development, but we're listening and hearing comments even at this point. And then transportation, we just covered that. Ecology, the importance of the tributary and protecting wildlife. Certainly, we've considered that and are looking at that. And that's it. So I try to get through that fairly quickly and have room for some
All right,
questions.
Councilor Carpenter.
Thank you. Now, you recognize that these are the trigger lands. In our agreement, the trigger lands very clearly, until a settlement area is built out, we don't move into the trigger lands. Now, your reason for putting your application in here is what you said earlier, is because the province's growth numbers were extended. But do you also realize that the intensification is happening in all the settlement area lands, which will increase the growth numbers in those lands? There's more than sufficient numbers to cover what the province is suggesting the increased growth will be.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Councillor Carpenter, we're aware that they are the trigger lands. The trigger lands and the agreement on that, we're well aware of, we've reviewed. Obviously, there's an opportunity under the new provincial planning statement to submit settlement expansion where there's a need. We certainly do think there is a need. Part of the land needs assessment that we did consider the intensification potential, as well as what was likely given the forecasted growth that's required. I still think there's a requirement, especially for grade-related housing, that is not going to be met and is not currently met for the city.
And so do you think it's appropriate to bring a proposal for the farthest southeast portion of the city where services don't exist at this time yet? You think that's something that's doable?
Through you again, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Councillor Carpenter, our servicing analysis does, and this was in the fiscal analysis as well. There is a significant investment the city's making in sewer and water infrastructure that we benefit from and can connect to. And one of the things to note, I skipped over because it was so quick, and I apologize for that. We did do an agricultural impact assessment as well. These are one of the only few lands in the city that are actually rural as opposed to prime agricultural. And one of the mandates we have as planners and the city has is if you're accommodating growth to avoid prime ag areas, prime agricultural areas, this is one of the few areas that can accomplish that as a rural area. So there's existing development proceeding adjacent to us. There's servicing available. And this is also the least impactful probably in the city from a prime agricultural
Final
impact.
question, if I may, then. So you think it makes logical sense to go at the farthest edge of the city and work our way in, filling in towards the city, filling in land, as opposed to working our way from the inside out?
So again, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think very open to have phasing discussions. I mean, clearly servicing will proceed from the west to the east. So this is going from, I guess what you would term in that sense is from the inside to the outside. We expect development to proceed. But, you know, these are also lands that can go forward at some point in the not too near future. And I think it is something the city and any city, any municipality should think about. If there's willing developers who are willing to move forward and work in partnership to create new neighborhoods and communities, that's very different than hypothetical or theoretical lands that don't have applications going forward. And you have Greybrook, the applicant here, very eager to move ahead. And I think it's something that, especially meeting housing pledges and all the other things that the city has to do or would like to do, want to be partners in that and help contribute to that and deliver the housing that's required.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next, on to Councilor McCrory.
Thanks for coming tonight. Could you give us a reason other than the provincial statistics you've cited why we should proceed with this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, Councilor McCreary, I think there's many, many reasons. I think
One will suffice.
one will suffice. I think it's good planning overall. I think that it will complete this part of the settlement area. The lands, the trigger lands, though they are, were have been contemplated ultimately to be brought into the urban area. That was the purpose of them. And I think planning them comprehensively and putting to rest what that could be is a very good thing for the city to do, whether they develop immediately or in a little bit of a later time frame. Getting on with the certainty of that and planning that is always a very good practice that the city can consider.
Aside from representing the client you represent who owns these lands, could you state why we should bring this trigger land in advance of the others?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it completes this area that's developing. It's the last piece in Tutela that isn't planned and hasn't have what it's going to be figured out. I think that's important to do. And as I said, this is actually one of the few lands in the city that is rural as opposed to prime agricultural. Provincial policy, but just good planning and good common sense, regardless, would have you direct growth to lands like this as opposed to taking out farms that are of higher productivity or prime agricultural land. Yes.
Based on the drawing you provided today, which of course will change should this be approved, what would the population of these areas be?
Through you, Mr. Chair, give me 1 second. Of course, I forget the number now that you ask it, but I have it handy. Just give me 1 second. I'll tell you. We're anticipating that there's about 1,200 units, which, you know, roughly ballpark, this is like about 3,000 or so people ultimately that would be associated with about 3 people per unit assumption. It's probably a little even less than that, but assuming they're all mainly singles, it's roughly about 3.3 you'd do. So 1,200 times that, about that, call it 3,600. Let's go.
Okay, I'm gonna cut it off there. We've gone now almost 17 minutes unless someone wants to bring a motion to extend, but also be aware that, of course, there is an opportunity to ask further questions during the
Yes, sir.
last portion of the, when the applicant has the opportunity to reply. So with that, thank you very much, Ms. Corey. You are going to have an opportunity to respond as you have the final word.
We'll be listening and thank you.
Okay. So we'll now move on to the staff presentation. I believe, Joshua, you're going to be making this presentation. This is Joshua Schramm, who's manager of long range planning.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, committee members and members of the public. Josh Schramm, manager of long range planning. I want to take a quick moment, introduce my colleague, Danielle Foley. Danielle is a senior planner in long range planning and will be providing the staff presentation this evening. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide an overview of staff's analysis and recommendation on the proposal. So Mr. Corey's presentation did a great job going over the purpose of the application and the concept plan, so I won't duplicate efforts tonight. Same with the site features and surrounding land uses. So before getting into the application, in terms of the city's broader growth management framework, there are 2 key pieces that play a role here. The first being the 2016 boundary adjustment, where the city annexed lands from the county to accommodate future growth and development, and the 2051 official plan, which consisted of a lot of background work and land needs assessment to determine what land the city actually needed to accommodate growth. So this analysis looked at all of the expansion lands brought in and determined those ones best suited for growth. And that outcome was the current settlement area boundary, which can be seen as the red line on the map. I note it might be a bit small, so I apologize. So this sets the limit for where development can occur in the city. And the settlement area boundary that was approved through the official plan in 2021 was expanded by approximately 900 hectares, 500 hectares of which are for residential and community areas. The lands that were identified as not being needed were excluded from the boundary and designated as agricultural until such time that they may be needed. And the official plan sets out a further growth management framework that directs growth within the settlement area boundary between the built-up area through intensification and the designated greenfield area through a block planning approach. Another layer in Brantford's growth management context is the Municipal Boundary Adjustment Agreement. So to note, this is not a policy document, but it is a supporting tool, and it establishes the format for how the annexed lands are transitioned and developed. So this sets out 3 classifications of land, the first being the block plan areas that are in the settlement area boundary. There are 8 areas which are identified as gray on the map. The next would be future expansion lands not in the settlement area boundary, and these are identified with the blue asterisk on the map. And the third would be the trigger lands, and these are identified in the hatching overlay on the map. So the intent of the agreement was to ensure orderly phased growth based on need. So a sequential order of this development would be first the block plan areas, then the future expansion lands, and lastly, the trigger lands. And this need is determined by the trigger mechanism. So the residential trigger mechanism would be 80% of building permits issued for the residential expansion lands before the trigger lands could be brought forward. So to note, the subject lands are within the trigger areas as seen on the map, and that trigger threshold has not been met within the city. So what has changed since the city established this growth management framework in 2021? There have been several provincial policy changes that have introduced greater flexibility in accommodating growth, most notably shifting away from a municipal-led process to one that allows for privately initiated settlement area boundary expansions. And this shift is why this application is before you tonight. And it's important to note that the city has already received and will likely continue to receive interest in these types of applications. So while there has been a shift, it's still important that growth is considered comprehensively, and the 2026 official plan review, which is also on tonight's agenda and which my colleague Patrick Buser will be speaking about shortly, is intended to provide a roadmap for how these requests should be evaluated moving forward. But for tonight, there is an application in front of us, and the key question becomes, is this land needed and is it appropriate to bring into the settlement area at this time? Because good planning isn't about just accommodating growth, it's about ensuring growth happens in the right place at the right time. So to answer that key question, staff's analysis concluded that the lands are not needed and are not appropriate to bring into the settlement area boundary at this time. There are a number of reasons, the first of which would be land need. Staff note that we have significant capacity in the current settlement area. The initial findings of that 2026 official plan review show that growth is already being accommodated through higher densities in block plan areas and continued intensification within the built-up area. We're also seeing a clear shift in development patterns away from traditional low-rise single detached housing towards townhouses and apartment forms, which is reflected in the development applications that have been before council. In addition, there are still several block plan areas in the preliminary planning stages that have not yet been fully realized and will continue to accommodate future growth. And further, from a sequencing perspective, these lands do not represent a logical progression of urban growth. From the overall block plan areas, only 3 of the 8 have received endorsement. One of those would be the Tutela Heights West block plan area, but the Tutela Heights South and East block plan areas remain in those preliminary stages. So advancing development on these lands at this time would essentially leapfrog those areas. And as part of the official plan review, staff will be evaluating all potential expansion lands and ranking them based on suitability of growth to ensure expansion occurs in the most appropriate locations. And then in terms of infrastructure, there is currently no servicing available to support development on these lands, and there are several constraints, especially related to transportation for the site. There are upgrades planned for the Tutela Heights area to support the future growth accommodated in those 3 block plan areas, but they're not planned in the near term, and they also did not account for the scale of development on these subject lands. So bringing these lands forward now would be out of sequence with the city's master plans and would not represent an efficient growth pattern and would result in significant servicing costs and long-term life cycle costs that would have to be assumed by the city. And finally, the proposal is not well integrated with community infrastructure, including capacity in schools, transit, and recreation systems, which is a key component of planning complete communities. So further to the neighborhood meeting comments, which Mr. Corey summarized in his presentation, city staff have received 1 written submission followed by a neighborhood petition, which had 34 respondents, 20 of which provided further written comments, which were all opposed to the application and cited concerns with the timing and need of growth in this area. So in conclusion, staff found that the application was not consistent with provincial and municipal policy and that the lands are not needed at this time. And while the lands may be appropriate for development in the future, bringing them forward now would be premature. And as such, staff recommend refusal of the application. That concludes my presentation. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
First of all, Daniel, that was very succinct, comprehensive, and an excellent presentation. So, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you to staff, how close is servicing to this site now?
We'll direct that to the manager of development engineering, Gary Peaver.
Through the chair, manager of development engineering. The servicing, I'm gonna say, is for a few items a few years out, while many others like roads are 10+ years out.
Okay. And did I hear correctly that there's no plan to extend the servicing to this site in the near future?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Martin, not in the near future, no. One of the big servicing components for this site that's needed is going to be implemented by a neighboring block plan. So that block plan hasn't gone through that design stage yet. So we're still unknown of when and where that may come.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, and through you to staff. So I just wanted to go back to the trigger, which is the 80% of building permits have been issued for. We're talking about the other lands, the gray ones, not the hashed off ones. Can you tell me what percentage we're at? And in your opinion, how long would it even take us to get to 80% of building permits on the other lands that are identified?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor, for that question. So in terms of the block plan areas, only 3 of the 8 have received endorsement from staff approval of the block plan, which would still require development applications to be submitted and built out. So in terms of hitting that 80% target, I would say we're a fair ways away. I don't know if.
Okay, so through the chair to the councillor, of the 3 that Danielle is mentioning, the block plans that do have endorsement, one that is getting close to building permits would be Tutela Heights West. There is obviously some other applications in terms of draft plans that are advancing through the planning process, but probably very low percentages at this point with the anticipation of rollout in the next couple of years in terms of what that would look like.
So we're nowhere near the 80% that would then trigger.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks for that. And thank you for the presentation.
Councillor Carpenter.
But we're nowhere near the 80% even close at this point. So what are the options for the developer to turn this down? Can they go to the LPAT, the province? Can the province overrule us?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Yes, the applicant does have appeal rights under the Planning Act, so they would have that option available to them.
and then the province could overrule us regardless of good planning policies.
So through the chair to the council, that's correct. And I think one of the things that's before this committee, as mentioned by Danielle, is the official plan review 2026 and the opportunity to look at these types of applications, not in isolation, but comprehensively throughout the city. So, we would hope that the applicant would participate in that process with us to look at all of the lands and be a stakeholder in that process as well.
And the fact that we have land, settlement area land that's going to be built out first before we get into the trigger lands, because it gives us land. The growth period was, I believe, 50 years growing out. So we also have an application that we're to try and bring in, I think 3,100 acres of the airport lands. That's more land yet. So the need for development of this property is not needed at this time.
So through the mayor to the councillor, I think my colleague Danielle, to echo some of the things that you're saying there, would be correct. It's not a question of if these lands are brought in for community lands, but what is the appropriate time to look at them and the phasing and the sequencing that's related to that process as well, because you're referencing potential employment lands, but also the 500 hectares of residential lands that have been brought in for community development, residential development in advance of these lands.
And one final thing, having lands at the far east end of the city is problematic for providing service to that far end of the city, as opposed to would be very costly when there's nothing in between there.
Through the chair to you, Councillor Carpenter, that is correct. We are looking to have servicing designed and accommodated more from a west to east fashion for this area.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll cut it off at that. The members will have an opportunity to ask staff questions during the discussion debate portion. We've actually gone 13 minutes. So thank you very much. So now we move on to the public, and I think we've got some members of the public here who might be interested in talking to us about this. So this is the part of the meeting or the hearing where members of the public can come forward and present to us their position in respect to this application, either in support of or in opposition to it. If you are interested in addressing us, we ask that you come forward. Everyone will get a chance that wants to speak. So if you're interested, you would come forward. You've seen the other delegations. They come forward to the table below us here. And if you do that, you'll have 10 minutes to up to 10 minutes to make your presentation inclusive of any questions. So with that, I know we have quite a few members of the public that are here. So what you have to do, sir, is push that button and then you'll see the red light come on. And first thing I'd like you to do, if you could please identify yourself and your address.
Yes, good evening, Your Grace, and to council and the public. My name is Phil Henson. I live at 168 Phelps Road. It's been a family home for about 36 years. And the development is directly across the street from my home. Some of the concerns is to be moving this forward prematurely relative to the trigger lands and the annexing of the additional properties. I understand growth. I have two businesses here in Brantford. When Brantford annexed and made an agreement with County of Brant to add properties for the future planning and development, it was also considered where they would have a clean line. So if they just needed so much space, you would have an irregular shape. But to follow Phelps Road seemed to be a good border line. And hence my understanding that the trigger lands would be a final attempt at the far end. So it was noted earlier, we're starting from the outside working in. There's no infrastructure. The public doesn't want to see traffic going on Davin Road, but also there's a road that would come out directly in front of my house on an inside of a bend, which the other side of the bend, we've already had a death of two kids a couple months ago. So traffic management would be an issue. And I know the plan for the development is still, just represented as a plan and it's been approved or anything. But the row homes right across the front of these properties doesn't, carry the character of the rest of the properties on Phelps Road, which are all multiple acres, beautiful walking areas that we can enjoy. And every year that I've lived there and my father, there's been crops in that field across the road. So not agricultural. I wouldn't necessarily agree. I'm sure that there's creeks and forests and so forth in there that isn't farmed, but I'm just thinking that it's premature when we haven't densified and consumed all of the already planned properties. I think that's about it. Thank you
You
for your
made your
time.
points very concisely. I don't, yes, Councilor McCurry.
Just looking at the, your photo, the area between Phelps and Tootla Heights appears to be pretty well populated with streams. Is that correct?
Excuse me?
The area in question between where you live and Tootla Heights Road
No,
seems to have a lot of water courses.
I'm sorry.
Is that correct?
I live on Phelps Road.
Let me start over. The area between where you live on Phelps Road and Tootla Heights appears to be the home to quite a number of streams and creeks. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the net gain out of those lands would seem to be more suited to perhaps estate residential, which we don't see on what was proposed to us today. Is that how you understand it as well?
That is a fair statement. Thank you.
Okay, and you probably don't travel Tootla Heights Road much since it was closed by the county, do you?
I do not. I'm primarily on Phelps Road,
Okay,
but
Maybe-
now I do have to wait pretty
Okay.
much every day when I want to go out of my driveway because the traffic is so high already.
maybe we'll have to
Sorry.
wait to talk to folks that live and use Tootla Heights Road. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Henson. And we will be dealing with this shortly after members of the public have had their opportunity to make their presentations.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Grace?
Yes, okay. Yes, ma'am, please come forward and push the button. And if you state your full name and address, please.
My full name is Robin Lynn, and I live at 34 Davern. I have some pretty big concerns about the environmental impacts that this development will have on the streams and on the wildlife. I spoke to somebody at the open house, and the environmental consultant, I don't remember her name, but she told me that there was no at-risk, or I can't remember the other name, but no at-risk wildlife. And I said to her, we have seen turtles on Davern Road. And I know that turtles are species at risk. And she said, oh, yeah, except for turtles. And I really question the environmental impact assessment report, because I know I have had experience with consultants, and I know that consultants will make the reports to reflect what the person who hired them wants to know. And so I'm very concerned about the environmental impacts of this. But also, and I want to make it clear, I am not representing any Indigenous nation at this time. I am speaking solely as a resident, but I was the consultation supervisor for Six Nations of the Grand River. And I sat in meetings with the city of Brantford where we were told that these lands would not be developed for many years until after the Power Line Road lands were developed, after quite a number of other lands were developed. And I think that that is a concern. As I said, I am not speaking on behalf of Six Nations at this time. I'm speaking as a resident, but that still concerns me. I have also some concerns about the archaeological assessment that I'm hoping would at the very least go to stage 1, probably. I'm thinking probably stage 2 or 3 or more. So, you know, these are some of the concerns that I have. The wildlife for me and any species at risk, whether it be trees or plants, like wildlife, all of those environmental concerns are very much at the forefront of my mind, because we see coyotes, we see rabbits, we see raccoons, like skunks. All of these species were crowding out of their natural habitat. And where are they going to go if we continue crowding out their natural habitats? So those are my concerns that I would like to put forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin. That was a very important perspective to have on this, and we appreciate you coming out tonight and providing that to us.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I see. Well, we have two competing. You stood up first, so you'll go first.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, Mayor, members of council, and city staff. My name is Melissa Neeb, and I am a resident at 16 Davin Road in the Tutla Heights area. I'm speaking this evening on behalf of residents who participated in an organized community outreach regarding the proposed settlement boundary expansion and development in the Tutla Heights and Bell Homestead area. I would also like to acknowledge and thank city staff for the time and consideration that has gone into reviewing the application and the public feedback submitted through this process. As noted in the report, the letters, community summaries, resident feedback, and signatures were submitted to council as part of this outreach, and they were included in Appendix A. While council has had the opportunity to review those materials, I felt it was important to appear here this evening so the broader public record could also reflect the level of community involvement and concerns surrounding this proposal. Since the initial letter was submitted to council, additional responses and signatures have continued to come in. To date, feedback has been received from 53 residents, including 44 online submissions and 11 handwritten signatures. Of those respondents, 32 also provided additional written comments outlining their perspectives in further detail. Most importantly, 100% of those respondents indicated support for the concerns raised regarding the proposed settlement boundary expansion and agreed that development should be prioritized within existing settlement areas before outward expansion is considered. Input has now been received from residents across Tutla Heights Road, Davern Road, Rue Chateau Terrace, Rose Hill Drive, Bellam Avenue, Phelps Road, Mount Pleasant Road, Sour Springs Road, and Pleasant Crescent. I'm also joined this evening by many neighbors and community members who share these concerns and wanted to be present in support of this submission. Residents also took the initiative to meet prior to tonight's meeting to review the proposal, discuss the agenda materials, and ensure the feedback being presented this evening is informed, coordinated, and respectful. Throughout this process, the themes raised by community members has been remarkably consistent. The concerns expressed go beyond a single issue and speak to a broader long-term suitability of this area for a development of this scale. A significant portion of the feedback relates to overall community infrastructure and long-term capacity of the area to support the development. This community was not designed to accommodate a development of this scale. Existing residents in the surrounding area rely primarily on septic systems, with some properties on well water, reflecting the long-established rural nature of this area and the absence of urban sanitary servicing infrastructure. The introduction of a development of this scale and density would require substantial servicing expansion and urban infrastructure that does not currently exist within this area today. Beyond sanitary servicing, many residents feel broader community infrastructure across Brantford, particularly in West Brant, is already under significant strain. Existing access points into West Brant are heavily congested. Local healthcare services are already struggling to meet the current demand of residents, and both elementary and secondary schools servicing this area are operating well beyond their intended capacities. The community is also continuing to experience increasing pressure on recreational facilities, community spaces, access to family physicians, and other essential services. While residents recognize a new hospital is being planned for the future, construction has not yet begun, and many feel existing infrastructure and community services are already struggling to keep pace with the level of growth currently underway throughout West Brant. There is also concern regarding whether existing municipal master planning documents and long-term infrastructure planning fully contemplate the additional population, servicing demands, and community infrastructure needs associated with a proposal of this scale. For many residents, this proposal feels premature and inconsistent with the current realities and limitations of the surrounding community infrastructure. In addition, I would like to specifically address Tootla Heights Road and the environmental stability along the river corridor. Last year, Tootla Heights Road was closed due to the erosion and public safety concerns regarding the stability of the roadway that was near the riverbank. Many within the community feel the issue has not been sufficiently acknowledged within the context of this proposal. Given the scale of the proposed development, the environmental sensitivity of the area, and the potential for Tootla Heights Road to become a primary access road for future servicing or construction activity, there is significant unease regarding the long-term stability and suitability of what that corridor is. Many residents do not feel there has been sufficient time to fully understand what those long-term implications of the erosion issues that we've already experienced in this area, or whether future environmental impacts may continue over time. Another major theme raised throughout the feedback relates to the identity and character of the community. This is an area where many residents grew up, where families have lived for generations, and where people intentionally choose to remain and raise their own families because of the rural character, natural environment, the agricultural surroundings, and a strong sense of community that exists here. Many residents shared stories of growing up on these roads, supporting local farms and agricultural businesses, spending time along the river and in the trails, and building lives that were rooted in the character and the pace of this area. For many, this proposal does not feel like a natural extension of the community. It feels like a fundamental shift away from the very qualities that made people choose to live here in the first place. The proposed density, lot sizes, and overall scale of development represent a substantial and incompatible change for an area that has long been defined by its rural, historical, environmental, and low density character. The feedback being shared this evening is not isolated opposition. It reflects consistent and organized input from residents across the surrounding community who do not believe this proposal is appropriate for this area. I also want to acknowledge that many residents were encouraged to see city staff recommend refusal of the proposed settlement boundary expansion request within the agenda materials. Many felt that their concerns were reflected within that recommendation. However, it remained important for residents to appear before council this evening to ensure this input is formally represented on the public record and to demonstrate the level of community involvement surrounding this proposal. This submission reflects clear and consistent opposition from participating residents and demonstrates that concern extends well beyond the original notification boundary. On behalf of all of the residents who participated in this process, I respectfully ask council to support staff's recommendation to refuse the proposed settlement boundary expansion request and continue prioritizing responsible and sustainable growth that aligns with our infrastructure capacity, environmental considerations, and the established character of existing communities. Thank you for your time.
Well, Melissa, we might have a few questions for you, but first of all, I thought you gave a very good compendium of many of the concerns. But I know Councilor McCurry has a question for you.
Mayor, thank you. Welcome, Melissa. Nicely done. So you had touched on the reliance on septic and well. Is that universal throughout the neighborhood?
Sorry, I don't know how to do this properly. So through the chair, Councillor McCreary, no, that is not to everyone's needs.
Okay.
I believe that all of the area is on septic systems. Not all of the area is on wells.
So there's some city water.
There is some city water that
Okay.
is provided to some of
Is
the
there a
residents.
concern that the development will have a negative impact on the ability of people to draw water from their wells by impacting on the water table?
There is.
Okay. Is there a concern from folks who really don't want to be on city water and septic?
There is, yes.
Okay. And how's that closure of Tutla Heights Road working out for you?
To be honest, I work in the north end of Brantford.
Okay.
So I had what used to be a solid 17-minute commute turn into what is now a 26-minute commute for me to get about 6 kilometers across town. So it's definitely had an effect on me personally. On the other hand, for the kids, it's real quiet now. So they really enjoy being out there and being able to go through the trails and being able to hop in the ponds and collect their snakes and whatever else they might find while they're out there. But yes, it's definitely had its challenges from a commuting
So
standpoint.
do you understand if there's a concern in the community there about the safety of having a single access road in? with
Sorry, can you
respect to
repeat the question?
emergency services?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Not a through street anymore,
Correct.
because the county apparently has no money or no desire to make that road contiguous.
Correct.
So is there a concern in the community where you folks live about having just one single access in and out? I see.
I didn't
heads
speak
going
to that.
up.
I would
Yeah.
say at this stage, that's not something that's come to light throughout this process. No.
Okay, all right. Those were my questions. Thank you very much.
Councilor Carpenter.
This is just one. First of all, thank you for the work you did here. But my question is, because you've already answered everything else, how much time have you put into this? You've been at this for a while from the looks of it. How much time have you put into all this?
Through the chair to Councillor Carpenter. Thank you. That's a great question. It's not something I'm keeping track of because it's something I'm incredibly passionate about. This is not something that I've done before. I moved to Davin Road about 3 years ago from Gillespie Drive, the center of West Brant. It was a breath of fresh air for us to get out there, for our kids to be able to enjoy it, for us to be able to enjoy it. So I have all the time to put into something that I'm passionate about.
So is it since the public meeting then? Is it?
Correct, since the public meeting, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melissa.
Thank you.
So I know we have at least one other person I saw. Yes. Sir, come on forward. Just push the button there in the speaker and then state your full name and address.
Thank you. My name is Trevor Small. I live at 42 Davern Road. That is at the very end, the roundabout, if you would, of Davern Road. So we're the last house on Davern Road. That house has been in my wife's family since it was built in 1965. So we have a pretty good understanding of the community and the home. But I also want to say that I'm not anti-development. My family grew up, they ran the Beaver Lumber location here in town for many, many years. Provided new homes for many, many people. But it was always with our local builders and in a measured, directed scale. I went to the meeting that was held. Really think that it's incredibly short-sighted on that builder's. They got the cart before the horse. They see the provincial has given them the window of opportunity to get a program in, and they're trying to jam something in that really is probably 20 or 25 years from being a sustainable program. I look at the road network that has been provided now, and even in their estimates, the city is far from being able to be prepared to have the adequate road network to look after. 1,200 houses is going to be 2,200 cars. 2,200 cars in what right now is a limited one road in, one road out. I realize that they're going to go out through Phelps. It seems to be incredibly short-sighted on the developer's part of view. And again, I want to say that I'm not anti-development. I'm just anti-development that is short-sighted. And I think this is really, really an opportunity for somebody that thought, oh, the province has given us carte blanche to try to get something squeezed in here. Let's hit while we can before something changes. So I really looked at the city's recommendations and part of the planners, and it's at least 10 to 15 years away, maybe 20. And I think that it would be incredibly worthwhile for the council to follow with the planning recommendations that we not let this happen at this point in time. So thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you very much for appearing tonight. We hope to make a decision later this evening. All right. There may be some others in the chamber who would like to speak, but I think at this point we'll give those who've been waiting patiently. I think we've had several people who have been waiting patiently to present virtually. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have a couple. The first one will be Caroline Barlett.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Good evening, Your Worship, Honorable Council and guests. Appreciate the time that you are all taking to listen to your constituents on this matter. As the clerk has identified, my name is Caroline Marlette. I live at 11 Davern Road. However, I'm a lifelong Brantfordian. I have lived here my entire life, going on 65 plus years. And I have seen the many changes that we have evolved into, what we've developed from to what we are today. And I am speaking to you with respect to what this proposal is projecting, what we are to become in the not so distant future, should our leadership endorse the developer's proposal. The city has always offered a warm and welcoming culture that has fostered a welcoming yet growing community that hasn't always been met with resounding successes. And I think we are speaking to you with respect to what has been occurring in the west of Brantford. We're noticing a significant difficulty with links to the highway, links to the services in the north end, to healthcare, to recreation, and to meeting our basic needs of food, clothing, etc. So that I would like to think that we may recognize progress, as we call it, is inevitable. We must ensure that it is done in a systematic, well-planned, and forward-thinking manner for the benefit of those who are here, as well as for the generations to come, because we want them to come. We need them to come. But if we cannot offer them safe, reliable home environments, they will not come, because other communities have done a better job in planning and preparing for new residents. We are seeking physicians. There are so many residents who do not have a primary care physician. The wait times in our hospital is far from acceptable. Adding more residents to the community in an unplanned manner would be irresponsible for all of our leaders. and it isn't doing our current community any service, nor are we welcoming those really authentically for the newcomers. We need to recognize that the generations to come are the true stakeholders, not just the transient investors who are not in this community for the long term. In your wisdom, you have already recognized through your committees and through your research that this proposed haphazard development does not consider those who live here, nor does it support those who would intend to come. And I thank you for recognizing this. And I hope that you will support all of those that you have heard speak to you today. The "if we will build it and it will come" philosophy is no longer a logical or sustainable viable concept, especially when we are speaking about irreparable damage to our historical landmarks, to which I am referring the Bell Homestead, as well as the Grand River, and our finite resources of land and water. Not to mention our flora, the Carolinian forest, as well as our wildlife. We are only 6 months into the closing of Tootla Heights Road, which was done due to the effects that excessive traffic has had on the landscape, in the hopes of saving established homes and a national heritage site. Imagine the consequences of heavy machinery, jackhammers, and construction vehicles, not to mention the ridiculous number of vehicles that will be using that road on a regular basis to gain access to the highway and other resources needed to sustain life in West Davern. Saying there would be no impact on our community or on our resources is incomprehensible and extremely irresponsible. We have had no new objective data to validate that even what we have done by closing Davern Road access as a throughway to Cockshut has been effective, nor are we able to have new long-term evaluation as to the viability of that road now that we have closed it. Wealth and health can no longer be tolerated. Wealth over health can no longer be tolerated and will be met with resistance from your constituency, as well as other community stakeholders, as that you can see by those before you this evening. Thank you for recognizing that this dollar-driven demand has not been a result of consultation. There are no First Nations represented in our community with respect to consultation. And when I attended the open house and asked deliberately what was the consultation with our Aboriginal First Nations people, the Confederacy or the Mississaugas of the First Credit, there was none. Considering you today, those who cannot be here, as well as the generations to come, I speak for those. I speak to those, and I ask that you listen for us all. They will be the ones to suffer the results of such an impetus and will struggle on so many levels as they scramble to find a viable and affordable solution for improper planning, even if there is such a beast, which we've noticed ourselves personally, we're struggling with. The other aspect to consider is what if no one comes, especially as there is no tangible and foreseeable infrastructure in place or pending to support new Brantfordians or keep those who are already here. We all realize that growth is not an if, but a when. And our leadership has planned for timely, sustainable development in outlying boundary lands before we address these ones. We have already much shovel-ready land. So I respectfully ask that the developers before you come and let's take our turn. We ask that you respect our wishes, our needs, and our community. We recognize that you are investors with a monetary commitment. However, you engaged in this process full well knowing that 2051 was your approximate timeline. Please respect the citizens before you and those to come over your shareholders. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Carolyn, for taking the time to speak to us virtually. I believe we have a second individual. I believe it's a Martin McDermott. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, that's correct. Mr. McDermott, we're just moving you over now, and if you'd like to speak, can you please unmute? Mr. McDermott, are you there?
Do we have anybody else?
Is it now?
Oh, there we go.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. McDermott, is that you? It's the Chair Kevin Davis for the Planning Committee hearing tonight. I understand you would like to speak to us about the matter that's before us.
What's that? That's not me.
Okay. That's not you. Okay.
No, okay.
Let me ask you this. Did you wish to speak to this planning application either in support of the application or opposed to it?
I'm opposed to this application.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. So did you want to speak to it or are you just?
Yes, I'll speak to it briefly. I had done research on these properties, some of the properties that are.
First of all, Mr. McDermott, could you please identify yourself and your address and then go on to make your presentation?
Okay, my name is Martin McDermott. I used to live at 149 Sour Springs Road in Mount Pleasant. And I'm opposed to this application because I brought information to the OPP in 2017 into how these properties were being purchased and then resold over in Malaysia and Singapore and elsewhere. It was a land banker named Walton International Group. And the OPP, as of, let's see, I think it was January 2019, had said they were now under criminal investigation. And so I wondered if anybody had further researched the acquisition of these properties, which were acquired around 2005, I believe, starting. And some of them had mistaken surveys done as well, which we had found. And people had complained about this to the ministry, but we can't get the ministry to respond through Will Bowman's office. So if anybody could get that done, that would be helpful.
Any other points you'd like to make in opposition to the planning application?
Yes, actually, we did find that there was a substantial campaign financing through Walton International and through.
Yeah, Mr. McDermott, what we're dealing with in this application, we're dealing with planning principles, whether it makes good planning sense from the perspective of the Planning Act. We don't and are discouraged from getting into motivation and the background of the individual applicants or those who are opposed. So I would appreciate if you would focus on the planning issues, whether it makes good planning sense to allow this.
Okay, I was power of attorney for Henry Wilmot for personal care, and he was very concerned before his passing about what developments were being proposed on those properties that he knew had been purchased in this way. And then he also, as you know, owned a very large forest, and he had given an easement, I believe, for a roadway along the edge of his property And he never really got compensated for that because the plan changed, and he was still, hoping that he might be able to sever a lot for a development. But that was not to interfere with any environmental issue if he had had a lot, but he didn't get one. And the issue there is that he's still in Brant County, or his property now in Erdely Wilmot's name is in Brant County. So it's not really the city there being developed, just right next to his property. So he would have fought this.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. McDermott. I think that's, I don't think we have anybody else waiting online. So I'll go back to those who are here in the chamber. Is there anyone else who's present tonight that would like to speak to this application, either in support of it or in opposition? Now is your opportunity to come forward. I got to ask this 3 times. Is there anyone else in the chamber tonight who would like to speak to this application, either in support of or in opposition to it? Now is an opportunity to come forward and speak to us. And I'm going to ask for, I feel like I'm an auctioneer here, a third and last time. Is there anyone present here tonight who would like to speak to this application that's before us, either in support of or in opposition? I thought that might get an interest. So yes, sir, come on up. Yes, you just come forward. I think you've seen where other people, yeah, that's a good spot to sit. And you push the button. I believe it's on the left. Yeah, it's on the right there. You'll see the red light come on.
Here we go. I think that's right.
So if you just state your full name, please. And
Yes,
your address, and then
my
you'll
name is
come in.
Douglas Crane.
Oh.
I live at 22 Davern Road. I've lived there now for 19 years. Purchased the property, as I said, about 19 years ago. I've enjoyed living at Davern Road immensely. And one thing that when I received the notice of the proposal, I was very concerned about the congestion and the traffic that will be created with dump trucks, bulldozers, excavators, the whine of diesel engines early in the morning till late at night digging up. As we've seen the upheaval on Mount Pleasant Road and that new development that they've taken over with the present farm there, it looks like a minefield has gone in, and they're putting up houses very rapidly to accommodate their concerns. But this would be the same effect that would go in right behind my house, which would be literally 100 feet from my back door. I enjoy looking out at a cornfield immensely. I do not look forward to looking out at rows and rows of townhouses. And I would be very concerned if that was the proposal that was allowed to go ahead. One thing that concerns me is on Davern Road, there are a number of, when I moved in 19 years ago, there were hardly any children on Davern Road. Now there are a lot of very young children that literally, even though parental control is pretty good, that kids play on the road all the time. So I would hate to see a dump truck come down there and mistake, accidentally run over a youngster or something like that, which would be highly possible in today's society. The traffic flow, as one gentleman mentioned before this, with 2,000 vehicles, probably that would be a reasonable estimate, would put tremendous flow on the traffic in that area. And right now, the traffic, we have a police car come down there, probably about, Brantford Police comes down there, probably about once every 3 days, I see a cruiser come down, which is fine. They're looking out for our well-being. But with the traffic that would come with a new development like that, it would be immense. And right next door to me, there are 4 youngsters there that used to get on the bus at 8 o'clock in the morning to go to school. Now, when the road was closed because of change of bus routes, here we have 5-year-old youngsters getting on a yellow school bus at 10 minutes after 7 every morning and they get home at 4:30 every day on the school bus. High school kids get on at 8 o'clock, but these little wee kids get on at quarter after 10 after 7. So anyway, I'd like to say that really the idea of the proposal is very concerning. One, with the water consumption would be one issue. Also the sewage and putting in huge culverts to accommodate sewage or putting in holding ponds, like whatever is happening on Mount Pleasant Road, I don't know is going on there, but it looks like they're putting in a huge holding pond for some reason, which gives me concern when I look at it. Because eventually those turn into nice swamps, if you can want to put it in a better light. But anyway, one other thing that I should inform you is I have a friend that flies for United Airlines. We were up over top of Brantford about 3 weeks ago. I didn't even mention this proposal to him about the development. And he said to me, he said, how's living in Brantford? I said, great place to live. He said, he said, I fly over a lot of cities. He said, I could fly over a lot of cities in Europe. And he said, one place in Europe that really bothers me immensely is Barcelona, Spain. He said, you look down on Barcelona, Spain. He said, it's just a sea of rental units, jam-packed. You couldn't even hardly walk down the streets. They're so jam-packed. He said, don't let that sort of thing happen to Brantford. If you have any wise people looking after the Brantford proposals and that sort of thing. So I leave that with you, that I would hate to see the end of Davern Road as a nice community to live in with Bell Homestead just down the street. And I would hate to see it turning into another Barcelona, Spain down in there. 50 years down the road could be. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen, and I appreciate your concerns. But those are my thoughts, very sincerely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Crane, for coming forward. So is there anyone else who is in attendance tonight that would like to speak to this application, either in opposition to or in support of? Now is the time to come forward. Is there anyone else in the audience tonight who would like to speak to this application, either in support of or in opposition to it? Please come forward. And for the third and last time, if there's anyone present who would like to speak to this application, either in support of or in opposition to it, now is your last time to come forward. So I think we've had about 10 or 12 presenters. I think we've received a wide variety and divergent viewpoints. So now I'm going to move on to following the public hearing process, the moving party, the applicant, they do get to have an opportunity to speak for 5 minutes, inclusive of questions, to clarify any issues that arose during, or questions that arose during the staff presentation or what we heard from the public. So, Mr. Corey, your opportunity for a reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to everyone from the public who came out tonight. Really appreciate and can see the love of this community and the amazing residents that you have. I mean, that's absolutely part of the reason Graybrook wants to build new housing here. That is partly, and this is part of the discussion, some of the things that came up, the 80% trigger lands and that not being met. I think that's partly telling for the city. And if I can say, and this is a challenge for all planners, just because we put a color on a map saying that this area is intended for development doesn't mean anybody is going to come forward necessarily and do such a thing. The lands that we have here are contiguous to other development that's going to go on. You have them all held by a developer and community builder who is looking to build new neighborhoods. And the city has some very good big targets. I mean, the city has a housing pledge of delivering 10,000 units by 2031. When I checked the housing completes from 2021 to 2051, I believe you're at 3,446. So we're not quite on pace. But also there's a requirement under the provincial planning statement, and for good reason, that there be a 15-year supply of housing of all types. By our math and when we did our land needs assessment, I do not believe the city is meeting that target with regards to single and semi and townhouse dwellings. And that's largely because of what the staff had mentioned. There are only 3 out of 8 of the block plans that have advanced. And that means that the city is behind in terms of delivering housing in a time frame that was anticipated by the official plan and to meet the housing targets. So I think these lands can and would provide a growth for new residents and, more importantly, new families. And providing a mix and range of housing, looking at community uses, which I heard about as well, is a very important element. Usually we would take these comments back and deal with them in terms of looking at our official plan and considering any changes we have to make. Unfortunately, tonight, there's a recommendation to go straight to refusal. We'd obviously ask you to consider approval if you're going to make a decision tonight. But typically we would have the comments, we would hear all these comments tonight and take them back and relook at what we were doing as a response to that. I don't think we're going to be afforded that opportunity. And then Tudor Heights road being closed, one of the residents mentioned that the slope stability was a concern. We did do a slope stability analysis as part of the work that we did and identified an appropriate setback from what that would be. There's some environmental comments raised, especially about endangered species. I was just reviewing our work again when one resident, I apologize, I forget her name, was speaking, asking about what was said at the meeting. What the environmental consultant had said in their report and in person was they haven't seen any or didn't observe endangered species, although there's a probability of many of those species being in this area. So if there's sightings, happy to know that and accommodate it. Councilor McCreary, you had mentioned whether Tula Heights, how that was working out, especially from a one access perspective. That was something that we had raised in our consultation with the community. Only having one access to Davern is a significant safety risk. This development could provide a second access, even of emergency access only, because there's 2 accesses proposed to Phelps. So instead of Tula Heights being closed, there's another access there. And then the only other thing I had on here, it was mention about Walton. I spoke with my client, Greybrook. They have no involvement. They have never been involved with Walton. There's no involvement there that I know of. So, Mr. Mayor, maybe those are what I heard. Happy to answer any other questions or thoughts.
Councilor Van Tilburg, did you have your hand up?
Yes, are there properties within the city of Brantford, other properties that your client holds that aren't in the expansion lands?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no.
No, just
my client's saying no. I seem not.
just one property. All right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when did you start the plans for this development? When were you drafting them up?
Well, as per the timeline in the presentation, Councillor, we started about a year and a bit ago, a couple of years ago. I think the property may have been acquired before that, but we started in earnest last year mainly.
And so in as late as September, Tula was closed and your changes was simply a setback?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think I understand the question. I apologize. I think.
Last September, Tula Heights Road was closed.
Yes.
I'm assuming you didn't know that was happening.
We knew it was being considered because of the concerns on erosion and other matters. So as we were developing things, we knew we'd have to focus on access to Phelps, which is why that's what's being proposed now.
There was no access to Phelps prior?
So there was an access anticipated through Davern because that was historically looked at. I think our thinking is hearing loud and clear from the residents their preference. That would not be something we would proceed with unless the city told us to or requested that we do that ultimately.
And then with the closure of Tula Heights, the only other option there was you analyzed the setback. What is that setback?
The setback from Tula Heights?
Yeah, that you've chosen that wasn't there prior. Because I'm assuming you were going to build,
yes,
to build differently.
No, through you, Mr. Mayor. Most of our development is not impacted by that setback. There are a few homes that currently take access off Tula Heights. They would ultimately, with the full closure of the road, need to take access potentially off our lands as they develop. But the majority of our lands are well set back from any erosion or any hazard from the slope stability analysis that we did.
So you've done a full slope stability analysis.
There was a slope stability analysis conducted by our team. That's correct.
All right, thank you.
All right, we've got about 7 minutes then. Thank you very much, Mr. Corey. We're now going to proceed immediately into the debate.
Thank you, sir.
So that does close the public hearing portion of this particular matter. And we're now going to have a resolution put on the floor. And just so members of the public know, it has three parts. One is we're receiving the staff report. The second part of the resolution is that the application be refused. And thirdly, that there's indication that there was a full public hearing and that we consider the interests of all the parties. So if I can get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor for discussion, moved by Councillor Carpenter, second by Councillor Sicoli. We now have it on the floor for discussion. Councillor Sicoli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And these trigger lands really serve for us as a committee here, as a pace car for growth in our community. And this isn't the first time that a developer has inquired about unlocking these trigger lands with me early. And this is the first time to my knowledge that we've had someone actually come forward here to council. But I do want to thank the residents of this entire community for being incredibly respectful and polite. And the dialogue has always been very courteous between both the developer and myself and the residents and the developer. And it really was a very smooth process. And I've been speaking with the developer on this for a while, so nothing I'm going to say here is should be shocking to anyone. But the growth in our city is so densely loaded in Ward 1, and with that comes a lot of growing pains, to put that lightly, especially with transportation. And maybe next year's council is going to have to start looking at the boundary lands out there in Ward 1 as we approving 3,000 new people at a time. When we are, it's time to really respect these trigger lands and the pace car that we set for ourselves. But in saying that, I did keep an open mind as we went through the public engagement process, because I thought maybe there was some pros to having some added transportation routes out of Ward 1. So I did keep an open mind on that. And I did my best to speak to as many people that did come out to that public engagement session and educate as many people as I can about the trigger lands and explain that this isn't a matter of if this will be developed, it's more of a when type thing. And so after speaking to the community, I just don't see a compelling enough case to unlock these lands early. So I'm definitely going to be supporting staff's suggestion today that we refuse this application for moving forward at this time. And Councillor Sullivan couldn't be here tonight, but he was a part of our public engagement. And I know that he's shared with me and he asked me to share tonight as well that he's supportive of refusing this as well at this time. So I thank you very much to the staff who went through this exercise, and I'm supportive of your suggestion tonight. And I hope that we have council's, it sounds like we will, but we'll have council's support to pump the brakes on this development at this point in time. Thank you.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you. I asked staff a question. So when did the provincial legislation change that allowed for applications to come in to apply for the trigger lands for building development? The 2024?
Yeah, so through the chair to the councillor, yes, the provincial planning statement was received royal assent on October 20th, 2024.
Okay, then before I speak to it, that's it. Thank you. So what I want to speak to is the province has been changing the rules and deciding what happens in municipalities and what happens in neighborhoods. And that's the current provincial government and your current member of provincial parliament. They need to speak to about changing rules that allow the province to overrule us and make decisions based upon what they think is good for our community as opposed to what we think is good for our community. And I want to congratulate all of you, and specifically Melissa Mead, who did a lot of work and groundwork and going around working with the neighborhood and speaking on behalf of everybody and those that spoke here today. When we developed communities, we developed a plan here that said we would grow from the inside out, not from the outside in. And of course, it's in developers' interest to have that land come inside the city and make application. And the reason that they can do that because the province has allowed them to do that by changing legislation. So you need to speak up to your provincial representative when it comes to planning matters should be decided locally with people with local decisions. And this is not a good plan developed on the outside in. It makes no sense for a lot of good reasons that are our planning staff have recommended here. And I certainly will support the recommendation to not have this development go forward. Thank you.
Councillor Hunt, you're next.
Thank you. And so first of all, I too want to thank everyone that's here. And it's good to see all the neighbors basically banding together to make sure that your voices are heard. And I'm pretty sure I can speak for all of us up here that we heard you loud and clear. I did have a question though for through you to staff regarding the infrastructure. So when we and I see Gary coming. Sorry to make you hike from the back of the room. So we discussed the fact that we wouldn't be servicing this land for 10 to 15 years. But we also heard during the presentations from the public that there are already existing residential homes out here that are not even serviced. And so do we have a plan to even service the existing residential homes that are out there? And if so, how far out would that be, Gary?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Hunt, we don't have a plan to service the sanitary out to those existing homes at this time. Again, the neighboring block plans, we're really looking at how the servicing could occur out there via a main pumping station. I think it'd be more appropriate at that time. We would look at how we would service the existing homes when the other two block plans start their design work.
Yeah, so we're like a decade at least away from being able to service the lands out there, considering the fact we already have existing residential out there that is not on service land. Is that a fair assumption?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Hunt, that'd be a fair assumption.
Great. Thanks so much, Gary.
Councillor Samuel, you're next.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So first, I wanted to just thank everybody for being here tonight and for sharing all the thoughtful reasons why this is important to you. So growth in the right place at the right time is what I heard tonight. And I've heard a lot of reasons why this is not that. And so I'll certainly be supporting the refusal of this tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly great to see a very close-knit community gather here tonight and certainly express your concerns for what's happening. I had one resident listen. I heard him say that he is not against development, but he certainly has a concern of this particular growth plan because it's not really done according to how we want to see things done. Right? As Councilor Carpenter said, we like to build from the inside out, not from the outside in. I am pro-development, but I am going to support city staff on this tonight because I think that they've made a very compelling case as to why these trigger lanes are not to be not in the near future for what we're looking for. I understand that the developer has the opportunity to source out provincial support and so forth, but again, the staff has done a very good job in making a case that's noteworthy that certainly needs to be addressed. So therefore, again, as I'm saying, I'm not supporting this. I'm going to support staff tonight, not the developers' things. Thank you very much.
Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you very much. I was a member of the negotiating committee when we undertook this. We called it the boundary adjustment at the time, but I like to call it the annexation of the county lands, which brought in the intake of the time. And as we did that, we identified the trigger lands being something that would be far off on the horizon. And I think at the time we anticipated probably about 20 years from the date the first shovel went in the ground to build the first house, which would take us, well, a ways down the road still. However, we did at the time consider that there may be applications early for the trigger lands to become part of our geographic development boundary in the city of Brantford. And it's our sole discretion to do that. And that's why this is here before us today. And our staff have rightfully recognized there's no good reason to do this yet. We haven't met the threshold that we set for ourselves. And I asked the question about a good reason, and I couldn't see one other than the fact that the developer would like to develop those lands because that's the business they're in. So I don't see a good reason for that. I don't see any reason to not accede to what you folks have said. You said a lot of common sense things. My questions were all answered succinctly by you folks who came here to delegate today. So I won't be supporting this today. I suspect nobody's going to support this today. There'll come a time when these lands will become built out by City of Brantford. But my guess would be that most of you folks will have moved on from your current homes by then. And you'll have a new crowd out there who may be less settled in and more amenable. I thought you should be very flattered, though, to learn tonight from the developer that they desire to locate next to you because you live in such a great area, which their presence will completely ruin. So be it. Thank you. Thank you for being here, folks.
Councilor Van Tilburg.
No, I will be supporting staff on this. I won't be supporting the change to the planning amendment. You know, I'm sure on the top of Tootla Heights, you can see that there's a 22-story apartment building being built right across from the Civic Center now. And as a city, we have to focus on growing up, not out. And we have lots of infill that we still have to do. There's 2 more apartment buildings going up in the Canadian Tire parking lot. We've got these kind of applications coming to us all the time, and there is open space and open land to be built within the current city boundaries that aren't in the expansion lands there that need to be developed. And we'll be happy to develop those. The last time that I saw staff fight back on a proposal has to go back to around 2010. This does not happen often. In fact, it's very rare. And usually that ends up with the entire support of the council and all the resources that we have. And those resources will be put forward to follow through on the plans that the city made. There's a reason why we had them trigger lands and trigger lands set in that way. And that's so that we can be prepared. When we brought these lands into the city, that happened to be 2017. Around 2017, we knew that there were some stability issues along the Tootla Heights area. We knew that when we were taking it in. In the meantime, we've made no progress on that other than to see that the county and the city had to take we have to block the road off. Things will be done later or put on hold or what have you. We are so far away from going to the trigger lands, it's not funny. And there's no reason to jump the gun. It has every red flag on it saying why we shouldn't do it, why we're not ready to do it. And you can see there's an acceptance from the way the planning was done that we do intend to do it, that things will change there at some point in the future. And that's the key. In the future, and when we're ready, and when we're planned and when there's good planning, because when you start throwing pieces like that up and somebody says, I'm going to put it to Phelps Road now. Well, you know, I'm going to be selfish here, but if you're in the 5th Ward, not Ward 1, you're going to see the traffic then go off the now busy Phelps Road, which you've already seen the traffic there. That's going to be more traffic heading towards Cockshoot Road, up down to Erie Ave, where we are not ready for that because Erie Ave is a two-lane road coming into the city. More bottlenecks. I don't even know if we have a traffic study for that or even comprehended such a thing. But that's what comes with all the planning. And so it's one of the reasons why I'm going to be looking forward to the next phase in this when we're going to be looking at changes on how we do our official plan and how we deal with these issues. But when we were looking at how we work with these new lands, there was a reason why these were called the trigger lands. I see you, Mayor.
I'd like to be succinct, too soon by about 2 decades. So with that, I'll call the vote.
Thank you. Item 5.1 carried unanimously on a recorded vote of 9-0. All those voting in favor are Councilors Van Tilburg, Samuel, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCrary, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
All right, I want to thank members of the public for coming out tonight. You can see you had a very major impact. So with that, I'm going to call a 5-minute break and then we'll reconvene. Give me a time. 7:55. We're going to reconvene in about 2 minutes, please. Thank you. We're going to reconvene. All right, we're now going to move into delegations presentations. And we have one presentation this evening. It's a presentation to be made by city staff regarding the official plan review. And Patrick, I believe you're going to come forward and make that presentation. And this is in reference to item 7.1.2, the work plan for the 2026 official plan review.
Good evening, Chair members. Chair, thank you for the introduction. I'm Patrick Gooser, a senior planner in long range planning. Just a quick rundown of tonight's presentation on the official plan review. I'll give a quick background on the adoption of the official plan, the land use planning framework at the time, and then land use planning changes since that adoption. We'll move into some matters to address in scope of work, get into the work plan, and then I'll spend a bit of time talking about employment areas and interim control, which is one component of the broader review. So the city's official plan was adopted and in effect in 2021. It was adopted under the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The growth plan itself was generally I'd say progressive and prescriptive policy document. So it established density targets, density minimums, intensification targets, and it focused growth to limit sprawl. Since that adoption, however, we have seen, as discussed earlier tonight, changes in the planning regime from the province. So on screen, we have about 7 pieces of legislation. You'll notice one in red. That one's actually being debated right now in the legislature. That's Bill 98. And that's just Planning Act amendments. These include other bills as well, or other amendments to DC Act, etc. The PPS 2020 and the growth plan were repealed, and the provincial planning statement 2024 was adopted. And that was in October 2024, as you heard. Broadly speaking, it can be seen as a more flexible policy document. And it's a significant change in provincial policy direction to municipalities. And it's something that must be addressed by the official plan. We also have increased development. We're seeing a robust amount of development in recent years, and that's across both infill in existing neighborhoods and greenfield or suburban contexts. You'll see a higher proportion of townhouses in subdivision proposals versus single detached dwellings. Apartments are being seen in infill neighborhoods or infill development, and also in some greenfield developments as well. There's higher population density, more housing units being planned than was planned for when the city adopted its official plan and followed the provincial methodology under the growth plan to establish a minimum target and a minimum number of growth. So staff are recommending a 2-stage approach to review the official plan. The first stage addresses matters that are pressing, but that we can address now. And then following that, we'll have certain matters that benefit from the first stage being complete and more provincial guidance. So stage 1 will see an update of our population projections to a 30-year horizon. Under the PPS, we're directed to use the Ministry of Finance numbers. When you derive a population projection from that, you end up with a higher number. Our preliminary work suggests a population in 2051 of 180,000 residents in Brantford versus 165 under the growth plan. We're also planning for a horizon of 30 years. The PPS sets out a range, 20 to 30 years. The 30 years is the maximum versus a specific year in the growth plan of 2051. We'll review and update our growth management policies. This is in light of, as we discussed earlier tonight, settlement area boundary expansions being possible, and also because we're just seeing that increased development density. This is also being addressed in other studies like the Transportation Master Plan and Master Servicing Plan updates. We'll evaluate employment areas because the scope of permitted uses there has been narrowed, and that's something I'll touch on a bit more detail towards the end of the presentation. There's also other technical matters. Planning is an evolving field, and there's always new theory, new practice, or as we've seen with the province, new legislation to adjust to. Stage 2 will benefit from this baseline work, the population projections, housing, etc. We'll look at our intensification policies and areas, and as I noted with Bill 98 being in debate right now at the legislature, there will be a mandate to use a standard official plan framework. So that's something we'll do once it's released and we have guidance from the province on what that standard framework is supposed to look like. Right. Moving to that first phase, the 2026 official plan review and our work plan. We provided more detail in the report, but to summarize, we'll start with our background work. We'll review policies in detail, both in the PPS, our official plan, identify what needs to be amended. We'll do forecasting work to the 30-year horizon. That's population, housing, jobs. We'll assess what that growth or projection means for land needs, for suburban growth, if it's necessary or not, and also what our employment needs will be. And while we're doing that work, we will also have an assessment of our rural area done to identify those best lands to bring in if there is a need. That'll set the baseline for policy drafting and what we do to amend and align with the PPS. We'll release a draft official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment to go with it for our employment lands, and we'll do robust public consultation with that released document to see what people think. Following the public consultation, which we expect this stage to be around Q2 of next year, we'll get into summary reporting back to council. And then we go into the final phases, which is revisions. We'll review what was said by the public, direction from council, see what the state of planning is. We'll make our revisions and re-release the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. Following that, the statutory consultation required by the Planning Act, and then a council decision, which ultimately goes to the minister for approval with respect to the OPA. Public consultation will be an ongoing feature of this OP review. At reports, we will have major PICs as well. Those will be at milestones, but that won't be the only consultation that happens. So employment areas. One specific change as a result of the PPS and Planning Act amendments that we'll address is employment areas. These are areas that accommodate heavy industry, large format goods movement. If you think Bernida or the Northwest industrial areas. These uses have emissions. They can be noisy. They can operate at all hours of the day. They can be land intensive and need access to goods movement corridors like the 403. They can also have a negative impact on residential uses or other sensitive uses and can be negatively impacted by those uses. So our review will, because the province has narrowed that range of uses in employment areas through the PPS, and that's to manufacturing, research and development, warehousing, goods movement, accessory uses. You read that with all the other policies and what they're saying, and they would like to see employment areas stripped back to what is the most important to protect for those heavy industrial uses, those major footprint employment uses. And they'd like to see other land potentially be used for mixing of uses or residential. So our OP and zoning right now permit a wider range, and that's because of the policy that was in effect when we prepared the official plan. There's a transition from the province. Lawfully existing non-compliant uses can be allowed to continue in a new employment area, but a new non-compliant use cannot be established. This is a change the city has to make to the permissions. If a new non-compliant use is established, then the land cannot remain within a designated employment area in the long term. That land essentially cannot be used for that. It becomes sterilized from that purpose, and we have to find potentially other land for that. So this presents a bit of a challenge when we do our assessment. It's a bit of a moving target. So you'll see on the map, the inset map there, we've added some other colors. These represent mixed-use intensification corridors, major commercial centers, or even our residential designation. Where could those go? Without some form of protection, we risk fragmentation. That means employment areas get cut off by non-compatible uses. Or maybe there just is a compatibility issue with what is established. There could also be public service misalignment, and that might be less parks or worse access to schools. There is an opportunity to take some breathing room, and that is something called an interim control bylaw. And that is what staff are recommending tonight. As a tool, it allows for temporary pauses while a planning study is being done. The proposed interim control bylaw that staff recommend is attached to the report. It's Appendix B. We looked at what the tool allows. We're recommending a scoped, targeted approach. What the bylaw would allow is development to proceed. Business as usual, where the use that's proposed aligns with the Planning Act and what the province is directing us to focus our employment areas on. So manufacturing, any kind of manufacturing, warehousing, or goods movement, again, without specifics about what that business does, just if that's the role, that's compliant. If there's a lawfully existing non-compliant use, let's say a standalone retail store or a corner case of like a public service, they can continue. But it would pause for a while, just a short while, new non-compliant uses from being established so that lands don't get taken out of the potential employment areas that we're assessing. The bylaw would apply only to a portion of the employment areas. Staff assessed all the employment area designated lands in the city. We looked at the prevalence of compliant uses, manufacturing, goods movement, etc., versus non-compliant uses, offices, where that could be, or entertainment uses. We looked at our lot and building fabric, trying to focus on those areas with larger format lots that could handle large truck movement, and potentially scoping out those industrial malls or small format spaces that you might already see that prevalence of non-compliant, again, retail use. The bylaw would only apply for 1 year from adoption. There's one option to extend it to a maximum of 2 years. We would report back to council. While that bylaw is in force and effect, it's a period where we're doing the background work, we're preparing the draft policies, we're engaging with the community, we're engaging with stakeholders, including the businesses, the employment landowners in the city, and saying, what does the future look like? Because there's that give and there's the take. You can allow flexibility, but it might make that land less attractive for a big format user who wants to be able to expand over the long term. Again, think of what you see in the Northwest Industrial Area. So ultimately, when the bylaw is passed, if passed, there's a notice required. That will be put in the Civic News. Staff will also mail a copy of that statutory notice to all the affected property owners so they are aware. There will be notices posted on the website, on our zoning pages, on our building permit pages, so people are aware. And with that, that concludes my presentation. So I'm happy to answer any questions from the committee.
All right, we've actually gone about 12 minutes. So if anyone has any questions, they can raise it during the debate that we have in this issue. So with that, I'm going to ask, I believe, Councillor Hunt, you have the motion to put all of the items that have been separated for discussion on the floor.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Carpenter that all items for consideration consent 7.1 and 7.2 separated for discussion purposes be approved.
Okay. All right, and the first item that we'll deal with is 7.1.1. That's the transit options for Brantford International Villages Festival. Councillor Martin, you asked for this to be separated.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question through the staff. Was there any consideration given to getting someone to sponsor the idea of transit for the villages?
Good evening. I'm Brad Smith, Manager of Transit. Through the chair to you, Councillor. The actual sponsorship came forward from the villages. So sorry, the actual request came forward from the villages. So for this year, there was no actual look at a corporate sponsor, an outside sponsor. It was kind of how this could work together. I think for future years, we'd want to look at how that could be done to pull in some more parties into that discussion.
Okay, so the hope is to have a sponsor in future years.
Through your chair, yes, I think we would look at having being able to pull in a sponsor if possible for that. I think this year is a lot more to try this out with some of the new technology that we have with transit and being able to issue this pass out.
Okay, well, good luck with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hunt?
Thank you, and through you to staff, is what we're proposing here similar to our free transit on Canada Day, free transit on New Year's Eve? Is like we do have a couple of events on our calendar that already have this format.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, yes, very similar. It'll be free transit. The difference with this one is we are looking at utilizing our new technologies and transit fare payment through the app. So this pass would be pushed through to anybody with the app to be able to access that and access the villages that way. So this is a new step for us with our technology that we have. But in terms of the actual transit itself being free, yes, very similar to our New Year's service or our July 1st services.
So that, and you just raised another question then with, so it's only available to people that have the app. So if someone wants to go to the villages and doesn't have an app or doesn't have the free monthly pass, are they still going to have to pay the $3 to get there?
And through you, Mr. Mayor, so the pass would be available through the app. So anybody with that would have that automatically available to them. If anybody didn't have the app or needed that added onto their smart card, there's options available for that as well that we can do at the terminal for them.
Okay. But some little old lady who just decides she wants to get on the bus and go to the villages and doesn't have the app, or maybe doesn't already own or have one of the passes, which we already have issues with the transfer, they're not going to be able to have the free transit to the villages.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this proposal here is to push it through the app and through the fare system that we have. Yes.
So it's not recognizing everyone's usage. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll speak to this. This came about as a result of representatives of the International Villages Festival speaking to myself and Mr. Bradley. The issue is that they do have their shuttle service, but after a certain hour, I think it's 10 o'clock, the private service provider can't provide the shuttle service. And so they have, some of their villages are open till 11:30. And so they were looking for a supplemental service from us, from the city. And we saw it as an opportunity a really good opportunity to promote our new redesigned transit system, especially with that new app, where on this app, you can be at one of the villages, you indicate in the app where you want to go, what village you want to go, the address, what time you want to get there. And the app will actually tell you how you get there, what stop you should go to, what time you should go to that bus stop. And we really want to encourage the use of that app. It's something we rolled out in the last 2 years. So this was seen as a really good opportunity to help patrons of the Villages Festival who missed the shuttle. And so the way it's going to be accessed is not like a traditional Canada Day festival where, the public just generally can use the buses. It'll be promoted through a QR code in the passports. And so it's designed that patrons at villages who pay for the passport, there'll be a one-page ad, which we're getting that for free, promoting our transit system. And they'll use a QR code to access into the app and can then determine where it is they want to go and how they want to get there. And so it is different than Canada Day in the sense it's designed for the village attendees and is designed to encourage and promote the use of the app. So it's slightly different. So with that, I'm going to call Councillor Samuel.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm very supportive of the idea of working with the villages and having this access for people and being able to utilize our app. I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm not looking to amend anything at this point or anything, but I was just wondering if there is a way to kind of look at it to see if in some circumstances, if there is any way to accommodate somebody that wouldn't have the app, it just, or the card, and just doesn't have the access for that. Because as much as I'm really excited about this idea, I also want to make sure that we're not creating barriers for people to not participate. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly, again, we would look at being able to add this pass onto smart cards for those who requested it, or possibly having another card available for them. And so anybody looking to get there, we would find a way to accommodate that through our service. The advantage of having it done through the app or the card is a lot of the data that we receive. We'll be able to give this back to the village organizers and let them know how many people are getting off and on at stops and where they're traveling to and from.
I appreciate that, and that does sound important to have all of that data, but I do look forward to everybody being able to participate, and I'll be supporting this tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Caputo. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Brett. So my understanding this correctly, are we assigning a specific bus every night that's going from village to village to village? Or are these individuals dropping off, getting on the city bus and going to where it's going to?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, this will be utilizing our current service. We'll actually not be adjusting our service or having any specific shuttles, but this will just be running the regular Brantford Transit service. The expansions that we've done in the last year have allowed us to be able to meet the villages, to be able to give access to them within the reasonable walking distances, and connect to the network of all the villages as well. Where previously, before September of last year, our network wouldn't have been able to do that.
So it says here basically that an estimated $11,000 in reduced revenue. If we weren't in the villages at this particular time, we wouldn't be losing anything because these are just individuals that are actually utilizing the system to get from village to village, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a strong supporter in this. I think it's wonderful that we're able to utilize and use the systems that we have that are able to get people to and from whatever festival we have and any type of culture that we do, from Canada Day to the villages and so forth. So strongly supporting this. Thank you.
Councilor Carpenter?
Yes, thank you to you, Mr. Mayor, and to Mr. Bradley for someone bringing a concern, a problem to you and finding a quick solution. The villages at short time, they're coming up shortly. I just could think Pat Zinga would be thanking you if she was here today for as big supporter of the villages. Is it perfect? No, but it's pretty close. I mean, it's the right direction and moving towards our community events, having people access through transit, especially when you go to the village, you have good food, you dance, you have a few drinks. The public transit is available to take you home. So this is awesome. I'll support this 100%. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Councilor Curry?
Mayor, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So the system that we're using currently, does it currently allow searching by destination or by event?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. So the app that we recommend for trip planning is called Transit or Transit app. And you can use that on a phone or a computer, type in the addresses you want to go to, and it will lay it all out for you. Not even the address, pardon me. You could even just the location itself, German Hall, Polish Hall, and it will map that out for you with your trip, your transfers, and everything you might need to do in between.
Gretzky Center.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you type in Gretzky, do you get the Gretzky Center and the Gretzky Golf Course? You have to decide which great venue to attend.
It gives you a fantastic drop down of all of our wonderful venues, and you can choose from there.
Yeah, super. What an advent some of this tech has been for us, particularly in transit, which not too long ago simply was cash and paper transfer, right? So over the course of 20 years, we've come a long way. Councillor Samuel's commentary is an interesting one though, because there are some folks left in the world who don't have a cell phone or who have a flip phone, or simply don't have any interest whatsoever in learning these technologies. So we're going to continue to accommodate that to the best of our abilities as we go forward too, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's absolutely correct. We do still accept cash. We issue paper transfers for cash fares as well. We also have the smart cards and phone where the transfers are embedded directly in those.
So the era of the card with the punch to do a hole through it, that ship has sailed, correct?
That ship has sailed, yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so last I wanted to thank transit staff. I know certainly Mr. Spicer, he took hold of this when I asked him to, and he mapped out for the village officials, the various routes, how they intersected with the location of each village. Staff did a really great job responding very quickly. And so I want to thank transit staff for responding in such a positive way to this request. So with that, I'm going to call the vote.
And item 7.1.1 carried unanimously on a recorded vote of 9-0. All those voting in favor are Mayor Davis, Councilors Secoli, Caputo, McCreary, Martin, Hunt, Carpenter, Samuel, and Van Tilburg.
Right, we'll move then to item 7.1.2. This is the work plan for the 2026 official plan review. And so this was separated because we did have a presentation, but I think also Councilor Carpenter, you said you wanted to speak to it, so I'll let you go first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The staff, could you explain a little more about Bill 98 standard framework? We're not sure what that's going to be. I know you may not have a lot of information at this point. And a great presentation on the first round.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor. And to your question, Bill 98 is a new bill, amends a number of acts, but specifically for the Planning Act, it does a number of amendments to the section that governs the adoption and creation of official plans. And it sets out a list of municipalities, a transition date, and then adds a schedule. So the list of municipalities is what year, after which, if you amend your official plan comprehensively, you have to align. For us, it's January 1st, 2028. Any major comprehensive city amendments after that point would essentially need to transition the whole official plan to this new standard framework. The schedule that they're adding to the Planning Act lists the table of contents, the titles of sections, and establishes the specific land use designations that you'd be allowed to use. So these would be standard across all the province.
So all municipalities across the province of Ontario would be basically having official plans be very similar, if not the same?
Correct.
Okay, so that way, if you're developing anywhere in the province, the rules are roughly the same.
Correct.
Okay, and currently, and then when you're looking at the growth plan, the growth study, you talk about it adjusting for our growth. I think you said from 165,000 to 181,000 population. I think those are the numbers you quoted. So does that in growth and intensification include our intensification plan that we have, and the fact that we're getting a lot of developments are adding more intensification to their developments than we had first comprehended, so that there's actually more ability to grow in a tighter space? Population?
Yeah, through the chair to you, Councillor. It is again the growth for the whole municipality. There's some opportunity to try and direct it, but yeah, it includes infill context. It includes suburban growth.
So, but with the intensification of the new growth, the new lands north of Power Line, for example, there are more intensification being applied for that from the development point of view. So does that include then that lays that our needs because of the growth, expecting more population, we're actually building it in already because we're compacting the neighborhoods?
Yes, our preliminary projections show that we could be able to, maybe even accommodate all that Ministry of Finance-based growth within the existing lands.
Yeah.
But we would have a more thorough analysis using the province's population methodology as part of the official plan review to truly confirm that, or identify if there is maybe a small amount of land that could be
Requiring us the same amount of time that we've already got as far as moving into the other lands. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you very much, and through you, thanks, Patrick, for that. In the bylaw, we reference accessory functions, 2A, B, and C clauses. Is there a place where we further define accessory uses?
So through the chair to you, Councillor, yes, all those defined terms in that first section, implementation of the bylaw, align with our zoning bylaw. So you can read the interim control bylaw side by side with the zoning bylaw, and it means the same thing. So if you have an accessory use and that complies with zoning, then the bylaw lets you go ahead.
Is there a reference that we need in the bylaw that refers us back to that document?
That's built into it.
It is. Okay, super. Thank you very much for that.
Councilor Hunt.
Thank you. And through you, the slide that you had based on the 2026 review, I realize we're well into May of 2026, and there's quite a bit of reference to public consultation. So is it safe to assume that that's really work that's going to be done in 2026 and 2027?
So through the chair to you, Councillor, yes, it will be ongoing. We know we're getting into summer, so we're not planning a specific like public information session yet. There will be those for major, again, milestones where we have a document to share, but our plan is to look for opportunities to meet the community and meet stakeholders. So again, if you're working on vacation all summer, we can meet with certain stakeholders and stagger that to talk to them about what this review will be. We can also look for those public events in the summer. Look at a pop-up in Linden Park Mall, you know, while people are there shopping, and engage them. Go to the library, go to rec centers, put up posters, and do that all during the summer, and still plan for a bigger open house in the fall. We are aware just what time of year we're in, but consultation will be ongoing the entire time.
Okay, it just looked like a large body of work to try to accomplish in the remainder of 2026. My other question is around the interim control bylaw. So it specifically lists, notwithstanding any other bylaw to the contrary, a use that existed on the date of the passage. So that, I think you showed us on the map, there's a couple of little purple things on there that they're already existing. So they're okay because they're basically grandfathered in. And then you've listed one or more of the following uses, starting with an asphalt plant and going all the way down to warehousing. So am I to understand through the interim control bylaw that there wouldn't be any, I mean, we've got food processing, you know, there's quite a bit of stuff in here. So there wouldn't be any, under the interim control bylaw, there wouldn't be any applications for these types of uses permitted.
So through the chair to you, Councillor, what it does is it lists the uses in our zoning bylaw in the employment zones that are affected by interim control, and says the uses from this list can go ahead. So manufacturing in our bylaw, it's a fairly broad definition. Back when zoning started in the 60s, you would see like a bakery and X number of staff, a flower shop, or you know, an automobile shop for this specific type of vehicle. That's not how it works anymore. We're flexible, where just if you are making, processing, whatever the good might be, plastic, food, that's all manufacturing. That's all permitted. And then you read that together, and you don't get impacted by this interim control bylaw.
Oh, okay. So I'm reading the list differently. So the list, this list that's in the actual bylaw is permitted.
It is permissive.
Okay. Okay. So I was reading the list differently. I was thinking that the interim control bylaw would not allow for some of these, some of them very, very useful. Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Councillor Caputo. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very well done. I do have a question. So based upon the projected population going to 180 from what was, or the population base at 165 with 80,000 jobs planned, is it normally a 2-to-1 ratio for the amount of jobs to population within a municipality? And if so, what's our current population to jobs if we have that ability to answer that?
So in terms of population forecasting and some of the work that's included in the appendices to the report, we certainly are seeing in our preliminary review reaching that 180,000 and above. There was reference to where it's being allocated both in the expansion lands and within intensification. In terms of the jobs, the way that the official plan was structured, it evaluated them based on 25 jobs per hectare. So we don't have the quantum, but that would be evaluated through this official plan review process to kind of say, okay, where are we at today? Of those 80,000, where are we at? And what's the projection? Taking into consideration some of these changes to employment as well. So no, short and sweet is we don't have that number as readily available, but that will be looked at as a part of this process.
Sorry, and through the chair to the councillor, just to build on Josh's answer, This was a similar calculation that was done for the last official plan review that resulted in the current official plan. So it does look at the sectors of the economy. It does look at which ones are tied to population and which ones are perhaps a little more independent of a community's population. So it is something that we'll find out through that population forecasting. And through the consultant team we work with, we'll have those subject matter experts on hand.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we'll call the vote.
Item 7.1.2 carried unanimously on a recorded vote of 8-0. All those voting in favor are Councillor Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, Martin, McCurry, Caputo, and Mayor Davis.
All right, we have one more item that was separated. That's 7.1.4, the Downtown Facade and Safety Improvement Grant Program. Councillor Martin, you asked for this to be separated.
Thank you. Yes, I'll be voting against this. This is a program that only benefits the downtown. There are commercial areas in other wards that could utilize a facelift on the facade of their business. Ward 3, Ward 4, Ward 2. So because this is restricted to the downtown, I'll be voting against this one.
Okay, call the vote. Councillor McCurry.
I'm way over here on the right side here,
To really raise the hand, not just like, you know.
like Councillor Samuel just did. Yes, thank you for that advice. I fail to understand how paying for a new set of front doors really satisfies our criteria. I wonder if somebody could explain that for me. I don't know that it improves the facade. All it does is perhaps improve the doors.
Good evening, Tara Tran, Senior Project Manager in Economic Development. Through the chair to Councilor McCurry's question about the doors representing an improvement. We did look at the criteria of the Downtown Facade and Safety Grant, which is about promoting an improvement, beautification, and as well as safety. And the current set of doors are opaque, completely blocked. You cannot see in or out. And so having doors that now have break resistant, clear, transparent glass is considered more safe than the current situation, whereby both pedestrians can see in, patrons can see in and out. And it's noted that even for enforcement or officer safety, they can also see into the building before they have to deal with anything that might be occurring inside.
So it satisfies our criteria.
Yes, it does.
Is it perhaps time to revisit our criteria? That's not a fair question. I don't expect an answer. I thank you for that. I'm not sure I support this.
Councillor Samuel.
Yeah. So when I was looking at this, I was thinking about it a lot too. And I think that the visibility that it's going to create for safety reasons, and I think that anybody that's trying to do something to improve the safety of their location within the downtown is something I can support. So I will be supporting this tonight.
Councillor Carpenter.
Just quickly, we have community improvement plans all over the city for different reasons. And if someone feels they need one in Ward 4, Ward 3, or wherever else, can always bring that forward as a community improvement plan. So this program is put forward to provide improvements to the downtown, to make downtown safer, and to make people feel safer downtown. I will be supporting this recommendation. Thank you, Tara.
Tara, I got a question about, I can't tell from the picture nor the report. So will this installing the glass doors, I can quickly understand how that will contribute to making the property and that particular area of the street safer. But does it also eliminate the vestibule that's there? Like is the door going to be out at even with the outer facade of the building?
Through to your question, the applicant has indicated that they're using the existing entryway and simply fitting in the now transparent doors into the existing space. They haven't indicated to me that they are moving them forward. I would imagine they are keeping it where it is with the stoop and the vestibule.
Right. Well, would you, prior to this coming to council, which is pretty short, could you make that inquiry? And the reason why I asked that is I know from some SEPTED studies that eliminating what are called vestibules, it is considered a safety technique or a feature to improve the safety of buildings because it eliminates the activities that counterproductive activities, shall we call them, that often occur in vestibules overnight or after hours.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'm going to call the vote.
Item 7.1.4 carried on a recorded vote of 6-2. All those voting in favor are Mayor Davis, Councillor Caputo, Hunt, Carpenter, Samwell, Van Tilburg. Those opposed, Councillor McCurry and Martin.
All right, so we're going to move into resolutions. There's one resolution, re the J.C. Park concession that Councillor Hunt wants to bring forward. So Councillor Hunt, I'm going to ask you to read it, and I understand that you're going to make a couple of small changes to what we see in the agenda. So if you would, as you would normally do, read the resolution, state your seconder, if you'd be kind enough at the end of that, just to highlight what it is that's changed from what we received before us.
Yes, so moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Carpenter. Whereas neighborhood associations within the city of Brantford exist to serve residents and communities across the city. And whereas though these neighborhood associations are comprised of members of the community who work to activate community spaces which enrich the lives of citizens of Brantford. And whereas the Brandland Neighborhood Association has a long history of operating the concession at J.C. Park for the benefit of the community. And whereas Parks and Recreation Department is committed to supporting nonprofit organizations by seeking partnership with the concession operations throughout the city. Whereas the concession stand located at 395 Dunstan Street in Brantford, J.C. Park concession, has a long history of being operated by the Brandland Neighborhood Association. And whereas the Brandland Neighborhood Association acquires a City of Brantford business license and ensures that volunteers are certified in safe food handling. Whereas the Brantford Neighborhood Association concession operations helps raise funds to offset their programming and provides opportunity for local youth to gain valuable employment skills and required volunteer hours. And whereas the Brandland Neighborhood Association desires to license and operate the J.C. Park concession for a period of 3 years with an option to renew for an additional 3 years. Now therefore it be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby authorize staff to enter into a lease agreement with the representatives of the Brandland Neighborhood Association for a lease of the J.C. Park concession, and that such lease include the following items. 1, an initial term of 3 years with an option to renew for a period of 3 years, exercisable only in the event no default has occurred during the initial term. B, a nominal rent in the amount of, it says $2 throughout the term. The minor amendment there should be $2 per year. C, the wording should actually be access to the J.C. Park building. Not a storage room at the concession. And if anyone's ever been there, the concession itself takes up a very small corner of the building. And then D, other such items, other such terms satisfactory to the city solicitor. So if I can speak to it, the Brandland Neighborhood Association next year will be their 40th year. For probably 25 years, their spring and summer base of operations is J.C. Park. They have operated the concession every year since they've been there, but they have not had an agreement since prior to COVID. So our Parks and Rec staff are kind of getting caught up on getting some of these agreements signed. They operate the concession during the Brandland Neighborhood Association's rental of the sports field, and the Brandland Neighborhood Association would be probably the largest renter of the sports fields at J.C. Park. They also operate the concession during other rental periods where there are, for example, weekend tournaments that are held there. So a 3-year term with an additional 3 years allows for the continuity of operations from the standpoint of it not being an agreement that ends on like April 1st and then has to be done every year. And so the concession itself, there is no paid staff. It's an adult volunteer that supervises the kids. I can speak from experience. My daughter got her first job at Zehrs because she was able to put on the her application at Zehrs that she had worked at the J.C. Park concession, which gave her customer service and cash skills and that kind of thing. So while it does fund some of the operations, that really is an invaluable learning tool for the youth in the neighborhood. And with that, I think I will leave it there. But I do think that I want council to realize that the Brandland Neighborhood Association is the major renter of the sport fields at J.C. Park. So while the concession is a very small part of their operations, they're also generating a significant amount of money that's being paid back to the city to run the baseball leagues at J.C. Park. Thank you.
Councilor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you. Thanks to the councilor for the clarity. My understanding was they'd been running for years, and I'm glad to hear that. So this was beyond the ability of staff simply to do this, to legitimize this with our legal staff. Is that how we understand it?
Through the chair, that's correct, Councillor.
Okay, so status quo, and we're simply legitimizing what's happened for quite some time. Thank you.
Councilor Carpenter.
Yes, it's been happening for as long as I can remember, actually, at J.C.'s Park. And as Councilor Hunt said, her daughter started there, I think, when she was 11 or 12. The parents are playing baseball there, softball, I should say. It's mixed league teams. Parents are supervising. I remember myself exactly one time having to bring all the groceries shopping for one time to fill the concession booth. But it's filled with young people learning how to work cash registers, how to take cash, how to sell product, how to keep things, the shelf stock. It's a good experience for the young people. And as my ward mate has said, many of them used it as an opportunity to say that they when they get their first job, I have some experience, and this is where I had that experience for a couple of years actually working. And it's remarkable to see young people 11, 12, 13 years of age, 14 years of age in that concession booth. Very proud to be serving voluntarily to sell product. And the neighborhood association also, they all have barbecues there when there's other tournaments going on for their own tournaments or for neighborhood tournaments or community tournaments that come in from out of town, whether they got the barbecue selling hamburgers and hot dogs at the same time. And then the reason for the whole facility is because the neighborhood association will meet with their monthly meetings right up there in the meeting room that's there that we've staffed with furniture and so forth, desks and chairs a long time ago, and they store their equipment there. So it really is a center point for the neighborhood association during all the summer months to operate, and it provides a service to the community as a whole. It's a wonderful operation. It's a good thing to watch. If you haven't seen it, you should come up and see it.
Councilor Samuel.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to thank the council for bringing this forward. I'm well aware of the good work that the Brandland Neighborhood Association has been doing for years, and it sounds like it's been incredibly meaningful for the families in that community. So certainly, I want to make sure that we're supporting the Neighborhood Association and providing them the security they need to continue to have and to do the good work that they're doing. Thank you.
Great, I'll call the vote.
It appears eScribe just crashed, so I'm going to call the vote by hand. Councillor Samuel, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Martin, Councillor Caputo, Mayor Davis, McCreary, Councillor Carpenter,
Yes.
and Councillor Van Tilburg.
Yes.
Thank you. That carried unanimously.
Right, we have two notices of motion, one of which I believe Councillor Simon will be asking for a waiver, but let's deal with the first notice of motion. Councillor Carpenter, if you'd read the title. Yours is 9.1, the modernization respecting bicycles.
You're asking if I move the resolution?
Well, no, what I'm asking is there's two notices of motion.
Oh, my notice.
Yeah, yours is the first, so read the title, and I would just indicating that
Okay.
Councillor Samuel is gonna ask for a
Afterward.
waiver on
I
her.
got you. Review and the modernization of bylaw 36/2014 respecting power assisted bicycles on city trails and multi-use pathways.
Thank you. Councillor Samuel, you have the downtown construction mitigation fund notice of motion. And I believe you'd like to bring a request for waiver, so it could be heard tonight.
Yeah, so you would just explain why the urgency first? Is that the process?
No, you have to
Read the
put,
notice of
you
motion
would have
first.
to put the waiver motion on the floor of the second.
Okay. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Tilborg, that section 1511 point. The scribe just went. Sorry. Okay, it's back briefly. Okay. Of the City of Brantford Municipal Code be waived in order to consider the following resolution without prior notice. Okay.
Usually what we do is we actually have you read the actual resolution. And then, and if this passes, then you don't have to read the resolution.
Okay. Sorry about that. Here we go then. It's one time I wish I had printed this in paper. Whereas the city is undertaking significant long-term construction project within the downtown intended to enhance public infrastructure, transportation, public space, and long-term community vitality, and whereas prolonged construction activity has resulted and will continue to result in some disruptions, including reduced pedestrian and vehicle access, construction-related noise and dust, and in some cases decreased business visibility, leading to the potential financial strain, reduced customer traffic, and ongoing operational challenges for the downtown businesses throughout the duration of the project. And whereas a vibrant and economically healthy downtown is a critical component of the city's economic development objectives, community identity, and overall quality of place. And whereas downtown businesses contribute significantly to local employment, tourism, economic impact, and cultural life, and whereas proactive collaboration, targeted financial supports, and coordinated promotional efforts can help mitigate the short and medium term impacts of construction on local businesses while reinforcing public awareness that downtown remains open and accessible. Whereas an amount of $126,953 from the Historical Reserve Funds previously allocated to the former downtown grant program has been approved for reallocation to support downtown construction mitigation efforts. Now therefore be resolved that the council direct that staff seek opportunities to collaborate with the Downtown Brantford Business Improvement Association, the Brantford and Brant Chamber of Commerce, and other relevant business stakeholders to develop measures to support downtown businesses during the construction period, and that staff report back to council in June 2026 on potential tools and initiatives, which may include but are not limited to targeted grants or financial assistance programs, promotional and marketing campaigns encouraging continued patronage of downtown businesses, and other partnerships-based strategies intended to mitigate construction-related impacts and support business continuity. And so just to speak to the urgency of it now then.
Urgency only.
Yes. So the urgency is that the businesses and the farmers market vendors are experiencing these construction impacts in real time. And so waiving the rules tonight would allow staff to begin a collaborative mitigation planning immediately rather than losing valuable time during the active construction period. So that's why I wanted to move it tonight.
Okay. All right. Anyone else want to speak to the issue of urgency? Councilman Curry?
Yes, I'd like to hear the justification, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but we do have a process of notice, debate, council night. So, Mayor, through you to staff, if we if we advance this tonight, it will be on the council agenda on what date?
Through the chair, if we consider this tonight, it will be on the council agenda at the end of May. If we consider it as notice tonight, it will come in June on the CalPA agenda.
So it will not be debated this month if it's just notice of motion.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. That was the explanation I was looking for.
Not seeing, all right, so this requires a 2/3 vote. And I'll call the vote on the waiver motion.
I'm glad eScribe worked, so I didn't have to calculate 2/3. And that carried on a recorded vote of 8-0. All those voting in favor are Mayor Davis, Councillor Caputo, McCreary, Martin Hunt, Carpenter Samuel, and Van Tilburg.
So, Councillor Samuel, you just have to move in second and just read the title. Don't have to read the whole motion.
All right, so moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Van Tilburg, Downtown Construction Mitigation Fund, $126,953. And just to briefly speak to that, so our downtown businesses have been incredibly resilient, but many of them are experiencing real challenges with the construction impacts. And so when businesses struggle, the ripple effect is felt across our community. So we have already set aside the funds for this. And so tonight we're just really asking for staff to begin to building a coordinated plan alongside our partners. And so if we can plan proactively, then we can give the businesses a far better chance to remain strong throughout this project. So I hope everybody will consider supporting this tonight.
So I'll jump in. I've got a question. I know there's some others who want to speak. Add this to finance. So where is this money coming from? And is it money we're just reallocating?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Judy Moore, Commissioner of Corporate Services. So you're correct. We had a reserve fund, a reserve that was actually called the Downtown Performance Grants Reinvestment Fund. It was originally allocated for our downtown performance grants. We don't have any applications in that anymore. We now also have the downtown CIP program that looks after a lot of our downtown facade and SEPTED issues, as we heard earlier tonight. So these funds, we were originally going to reallocate them and put them somewhere else. And when we brought that in a reserve report about a year ago, council had actually asked us not to do that, to save this specifically for this purpose, to be able to save that money, knowing that the downtown businesses were going to get impacted by the construction, and had asked that we save that money for that purpose.
That's what I thought. Great. Good to hear that. So I believe over here, I saw some hands go up. Then Councillor Van Tilburg, did you have your hand up?
Well, I was going to express what was just far more clearly said. So I don't believe I'll need my opportunity to speak.
Councillor McCreary?
Mayor, thank you. So with respect to process, this is something the staff will simply act upon, or will it come back here to be ratified by this august body?
So through the chair to the councillor, yes, that's correct.
Which?
That we will develop a plan and bring it back for
Okay.
ratification from this council.
Super. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll call the vote.
Thank you. Item 9.2 carried unanimously on a recorded vote of 9-0. Mayor Davis, Councillor Caputo, McCreary, Martin Hunt, Carpenter Samuel, and Van Tilburg.
All right, that brings our meeting to an end, and we'll be meeting again next council meeting, which is actually in 2 weeks on May